on the subject of Steve Sondheim,
Yeah.
there's really nothing that hasn't been said well by many people. But I think for those of us who were close to him, and I first met him when I was in college.
I can't believe that story. Yeah.
It's an incredible story. You wrote a piece about Follies in the Harvard paper, and Stephen Sondheim saw it and wanted to meet you.
Yeah, really crazy, and really was a life-changing thing for me. And in the past 20 years or so, we've become, close friends. He was 91, but he wasn't ill. And I had a hilarious conversation with him 5 days before he died. We were making plans to have dinner in January after the holidays. He was an enormous fan, as I was forever, of a British actress named Harriet Walter, who is in Succession. She plays Lady Caroline, Logan's ex-wife. And Harriet was coming here in January. She mainly lives in London. And we were going to have dinner with her because he was dying to meet her and vice versa. And so it was kind of a shock the morning after Thanksgiving to just get the call that he had died. And it happened, very suddenly. I mean, after, by all accounts, a rollicking Thanksgiving dinner with friends in Connecticut, where he had a country house where he spent a lot of the pandemic. And so I guess that's the way to go, but it's been devastating to all of us who knew him because besides being a big loss, of course you expect someone 91 to die, but still the way it was a shock because no one expected it like tomorrow.
People were so touched by his work. I mean, Brian, you had an incredible post, but there was so many people that felt that they had to say something personally about how moved they were to their on a sort of molecular level by his work.
It's amazing for two reasons. Well, first of all, I have a friend who's, I'd say, without identifying, he's a titan in the music industry and has done some work through the years involving Steve Sondheim, but also done work with a lot of top artists in both the classical and modern and pop field.
It's not David Foster, is it?
No. And somebody in New York, and
I really didn't want it to be David Foster.
Yeah, it's not David Foster.
No, you didn't.
But about a month, we were having lunch about a month before Steve died, and we were just talking about Steve in some general way. And he said, I don't think there's a person in any art form in American culture, not just music, who's more universally beloved than he is. And that was sort of borne out by the reaction to his death. What's fascinating to me is someone who's known him so long, followed him so long, he was greeted with scorn for much of his career. When West Side Story opened on Broadway in 1957, when he was in his 20s, most people didn't even mention that he wrote the lyrics. When A Funny Thing Happened, the way the Forum opened a few years later, where he wrote the music and lyrics, no, it got good reviews, but most people didn't even mention him. They regarded him as just a secondary. And then shows like Company and Follies that were now considered classics got crappy reviews in the Times at the time. And so it's really amazing. Sunday in the Park with George lost the Tony Award. Most of his shows lost the Tony Award. And yet the stuff is so great. It has a permanence, and even his flops, like A Merrily Roll Along, are done more often than, My Fair Lady. It's just it revived more often. So
I think it's what took me from being I think one of the first Broadway albums I heard as a kid was probably like Les Mis or Phantom or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I remember the very first time I heard a Sondheim show was music from Company, and then Sunday in the Park with George right after that, before I had seen the shows or anything. And I think this probably happens to many people. Something goes off inside you to where you feel seen and you feel that you're understanding yourself a little better and looking at things a different way. And it's extremely exciting to be introduced to his work and then to appreciate it. I think it's a great point. I think he does speak to people. And what's interesting is no one wrote a larger variety of characters. I mean, he wrote everyone from Gypsy Rose Lee to Georges Seurat to Commodore Perry, the admiral who opened up Japan, and Japanese characters,
to elite Scandinavians and little night music, to a homicidal killer like Sweeney Todd, to the Elaine Stritch character and company. What the fairy tale characters in Into the Woods. What a range, that he could inhabit those characters. He often said he did it like an actor, that he was, inside them, internalized them, because he didn't have those experiences.
Right.
He's a conventional upper middle class, New York City Jewish, upbringing. He wasn't like spent a lot of time in Japan or around murderers that I know
But
about.
what an imagination, though.
Yeah.
And what an understanding of humanity.
And capable of so much understanding. Yeah.
And empathy with all kinds of people, including bad people. One thing that when Succession started, one complaint about it, I went through it a little bit on V2, is why should we care about these despicable, horrible, narcissistic assholes? And I think one reason it works in Succession is because the writers and the actors somehow make the characters so real that you find some human elements in them, even if their behavior is despicable. And so Steve could, burrow into a horrible mother like the mother in Gypsy, or Sweeney Todd, or, or you name it, and make it live.